How about that new Virginia law? Oh, yeah. So apparently Virginia decided to basically require people to be putting in their IDs whenever they went to adult web pages. So Pornhub banned Virginia. Like, good grief. Cobalt's like messaging me like, hey, check this out. Pornhub banned Virginia. I'm like, wait, what? Like, you totally tried to get this. Like, oh, I totally tried to get them. Like, oh yeah, it's for science. You had to go get onto the hub for science to see if you were actually banned as a geographic location for science. Sparkle, welcome on in. How you doing? Alopi, great to see you. Great to see you. Oh, let's do this thing. Hello, everybody. We're back. I'm gonna turn that off. I'm just gonna have the gentle glow of my on-air lamp on me. That's how it's gonna be. That's how it's gonna be.
Transmission.
Oh, it is strange streaming again, especially on a new platform. This is only our second stream on Kick. You know, we had like 5 years on Twitch, and then Twitch went cuckoo bananas. So here we are. Here we are. Oh, goodness gracious. Coming on in there. Oisin, what's up? So yeah, to make a long story short, I just spent a week vibing in you know, Pennsylvania, out at Slippery Rock at Drachenfest USA. This screen is not working for me. This screen is not working for me. Hold on. Let me just come out here. Here we go. Really? Oh, it's gonna be one of the. Hold on a second. Don't worry. We're gonna play with the scuff a little bit here. We're gonna fight the scuff. We're gonna fight the scuff. It's okay. There we go. If we do this and I do this, you know, you'd think it would let you drag more than one thing at a time. No. That would be too easy. That would be too easy. Hold on, let me see if I can do this. Move myself back down into the corner here. Good, I exist again. Huzzah. I'm a real boy. Mixed Janusu, welcome on in. Glad you're here. Glad to have you. This is going to be so whack-ass tonight. Let us just embrace. Let us just embrace the degree of scuff that is about to happen here. I have no idea what's going to happen. We're just gonna live with it. We're gonna live with it, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm gonna shrink that up a little bit. We're gonna move that up there. People can have their alertes. I want to get these here. I want to make myself bigger. said most guys ever. See if I can get this to actually line up right here. You know what? Can I actually get this to do what I want? Maybe I can get this to do what I want. Fun. As we move to a brand new streaming platform, everybody, this is how it goes. This is what we do. Miss Mercury, my delightful partner, come on in there with the follow. Thank you so much, Doncula. Dawn. Word. I'm going to go throw some stuff on here. I'm going to change the music up a little bit. Oh, I see Arden's there. I'm going to drag them up. Hello, my love. Hey.
Hey, sweetheart.
All right. At some point, remind me, I have to go and get the little animated jigglies. So that way, when people are talking, it'll actually bounce on screen on Discord. So it'll show who's talking for what. So, yes. Yes. In fact. So, yeah. We spent a whole week out in Drachenfest. Wild, huh? Which is, for those who don't know, Drachenfest is a huge festival LARP in Germany. Give me 1 second. Just unplug this. The joys of small apartment living. We're trying to make sure that our mics don't feedback on one another. You know, good times. But that will get 5,000, 5,500 people in Germany. We were at Drachenfest USA. It is the second year that Drachenfest USA has run. So I think last year, they had, what, like 300-ish people? And it was in Sparta, New Jersey?
Yeah, let me say I don't know the official total, but that sounds close.
It's coffee table numbers. We don't need to know all the decimal points. But I think it basically doubled in size this year. And we actually were at Cooper's Lake Campground in Pennsylvania, in Slippery Rock, PA. So basically, the event doubled, and we moved to what is considered a legendary event running site for people in the US. The SCA, the Society for Creative Anachronism, has been running their annual war for the last 50 years. This year, in I think it's August, will be Pennsic 50. They're planning on 18,000 people being there. So it's a beautiful site. It's huge. It has massive accommodations. It's able to accommodate so many people tenting and RVs, and has water and power hookups, and just perfect. The camp store alone was worth the price of admission.
Oh, yes. The staff also were incredibly attentive, and we appreciate them boundlessly.
Yes, the Coopers were fantastic. Cooper's Lake Campground is, in fact, owned by the Coopers. I think it's 4 or 5 generations in the family. It's been a running joke that the chocolate milk they sell at Cooper's Lake Campground is the most restorative thing you can ever have after a battle. It's still true. The last time I was at Cooper's Lake was in 1996 or 1997 for Pennsic 25, I think. So, yeah, it had been a minute. So a lot had changed. The amenities in the camp were amazing.
I swear that almond vanilla, like that almond cream soda from the camp store mixed with iced coffee, gave me an extra hit point for dealing with pack out.
Yeah,
because
right?
it was delicious, and I recommend that combination to anyone.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it's sort of living the dream there. We were so spoiled because you go into the store and there's fresh vegetables. They have hot food. They've got a cold case full of energy drinks and milk and beverages. They had fresh coffee every day. Every type of camping supply you could think of, and dry goods and beans and whatnot. Just insane. It was like basically anything that you would have to leave site to go to a Walmart for, they had it there, and generally at a competitive or better price. So
yeah, picture 5 or 6 orcs just rolling into the store to buy Gatorade.
We would roll in to get Gatorade. We would roll in and buy bundles of wood. So if you wanted to have a fire at night, you could buy cords of wood, big bags of wood for like $5. It was cheap. They had starter kits in there, every type of tent peg and rope and thing you could imagine. All kinds of food. Just amazing. I should have taken a picture of the store and just been like, hey, we've seen the top of the mountain. It's kind of the best, worst kept secret because the SCA has known about it for years. Other groups have been there. Some of them have not fared as well at the site because they just didn't play well with the management. And we're like, no. We will do whatever you need. I think the only thing they asked us to do was to make sure that our players washed the body paint off of them before they got in the showers because it could gunk up the shower system. And everyone did. That was like the only thing that really they were like, hey, can you make sure people take off the body paint before they get in the shower? That was kind of it. So pretty good. But overall, I like the site for all of those reasons more than Sparta, New Jersey. Also, the fact that the site is generally cleaner and better maintained, and it's a lot easier for people to travel to. It's right off of major highway systems. It's close to a major city with airports. So if people needed to get there, they were flying nationally or internationally. We had a few international people. They could get into Pittsburgh, and it was a much shorter drive than getting to Camp Sac. So right off the bat, that's a pretty good thing. Totally drove to a Target for an air mattress and then saw them at the camp store later. That happened to a lot of people, Mix. Janusu, so many people were like, oh, I need this. I'm going to go to Walmart. And then you look the next day in the camp store, just walk around and be like, oh, wait, it's here. 9 times out of 10, someone say, I think I need this. I would, after like 2 days, I went, have you been checking the camp store? You got to look in the camp store. But, yeah, there's so much to talk about with this event. I mean, we have our no shit there we were adventure stories of this. This has been a very long process in our apartment, though. Because for those of you who don't know, Arden is actually the person who is heading up the Alchemist Guild for Drachenfest. They're not here in an official capacity tonight. Just, we happen to be married. So I know they're going to have thoughts and opinions on things. I'm like, just get in here. Just get on Discord. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that meant that the house has been an absolute riot of fake flowers. There has been multiple crates of little cocktail umbrellas. So much painting of frogs. We had the kiddie pool stored out back at one point for the Alchemist Guild. A ton of glassware. I think you were saving those little glassware jars from the yogurt for like what? For the better part of a year for this?
A couple of months. You underestimate just how much yogurt I eat.
I do not, because I know how much yogurt you eat. I see how much yogurt you eat. I know. The fact that I started stealing those jars to use for rivet control.
And then I stole them all back. Yeah, basically, Drachenfest Prep has given me, you know, great gut flora because I collect yogurt jars and I collect kombucha bottles.
Yeah. Like, no lie. There's
It's so good, though, too.
There's an interesting correlation between, like, getting better health for having to collect the props we need for Drachenfest. But then when we got to Drachenfest, I honestly swear, between the extra cardio, between moving around more, between having to do the full face care routine, wearing that latex mask of that handsome critter you see in the background there in the stream, you know, I would have to shave every day. And then it'd be like, okay, so I got to shave. I got to use some witch hazel to clean everything out from the makeup. I got to moisturize before I go to bed. And then I got to go and do all that. Like, I went through like a 20-step. It was like Norman Bates level of face cleaning every day to make sure that I stayed healthy with my skin wearing that mask every day.
Yeah, this year we actually made the leap and rented a minivan to get everything out there. We ended up renting a Dodge Grand Caravan because it has the seats that fold into the floor. And we still packed that thing up to the roof.
Yeah.
Like, my co-lead Maya was in the back seat, walled in like a cask of Amontillado meme.
Oh, yeah.
It was really something. We were cramming things into every nook, cranny, and corner of that vehicle.
There was no room left in that vehicle, yeah.
The other massive game changer at Cooper's is that the festival is able to have on-site storage.
Which is huge. So it's like if you've ever, like a shipping container that we can pack up. So,
it has opened up so much capability for production and for their build crew, and I'm very, very stoked for the future for that reason.
Yeah, so the ability to actually means that the guilds and the enterprises can go, hey, we have things that are used for the game. I say we like I'm actually involved in any official capacity, but I'm not. Really, it's you. But the game, the royal we, if you will, the collective Drachenfest we, is able to just sort of get so many things stored in there. And that means that a number of things get to live on site permanently. So props don't have to come back and forth. And provided most of them survive, that is so huge. That is just life-changing in terms of people being able to get stuff to and from the event.
There's a whole lot of silica gel and duct tape that I'm depending on to make sure that things last. We've also built a lot of things that fold up or collapse or otherwise break down to be able to put them back together and use them. Someone from one of the other enterprises built us this amazing set of shelves that go together with pegs, and these raised beds that go together with pegs.
Let's see if I can find
a photo of them. They all break down into a really neat little package. Super helps.
If I can find some photos of them, because I know I took photos of some of them. If I can grab one quick, I'm going to do that and just pop it up here on stream. Because... you know what? I have photos of, like, the water bed, but I don't have photos of the actual, like, wood bed. Actually, you know what? I have some photos of, like, the overall thing. So if I do this, I can bring this down. So if we're looking at it... oh, and there's Moon in the background. So when you look at it, you can see these wood beds here. These are all just assembled with pegs, and it's slots and pegs. It's slots and pegs, and it's so good. Because we broke that thing down into, like, just... it, like, maybe 10 inches tall, and then just the length of the planks. And just zip tied it together, and that's that. Into storage it goes. Be gone. I'm gonna go and change up my, my musics here. We'll just let that do its thing. And if the music is too loud, let me know. I can turn it down. But you can see we had like the kiddie pool here, which we filled with fake goldfish and fake moss and whatnot. We actually had a really good, for our first year run at a really big alchemy garden project, because I know the one at Sparta was kind of a work in progress, and this year a lot of thought went into it. I really think the alchemy garden, the way you conceived of it, came out so well. And we were able to execute on that as a guild really well. Like that came together. It looks nice.
It also really helped that we had a wonderful dedicated team who got there early for setup and were able to help us get everything together. I owe them endless thanks because that super helped.
Yeah, Maya was able to get there. So we are co-lead Maya. One of the other heads of the Alchemy Guild was there. Shy Dotson, other head of the Alchemy Guild, was there. Moon was there early. Fellow Alchemy Guild member. Like me, not an official, Drachenfest person anyway, beyond the fact that we were playing as bazaar people, which is just another type of player. It just means you're not in a camp, but it's a little more selective.
Yeah. I also have to give massive props to Ash, one of the camp refs from Shadow Camp, who is the one who found the pool for us.
Yeah.
And brought it up from Maryland to Jersey City a couple of weeks ago.
And I don't want to forget Kira, because Kira was there early and helping us set everything up as well. So Kira was also a huge help. Huge help. So having like all these
straight up rocks.
We had I think like so we had like 6 people hands on deck. We got that whole thing set up and decorated. Once we had all the parts, it was really quick. Like it was shocking how fast it came together. One of the things you also got to see is that the pool attracted wildlife. So in Soft Dawn, we had scenes like this. So this young lady who was running around as like a giant tree frog found the pond and immediately had to go bond with the frogs in the pond. So we had that. One of the goblin role players from down in Shadow Camp came up and immediately like started sticking his head into it and blowing bubbles in the pond, which I didn't get photos of, and I'm kicking myself over it. So we had a lot of, the pond was a highlight. No one could walk by the pond and not want to play with like the goldfish or the frogs and whatnot. And I very quickly determined one of my early morning tasks, because I'm 5 a.m. crew, I can't sleep in, was I had to go and dump some water out and get a few buckets of fresh water every day, because I didn't want to have like malaria LARP. So flushing the water system out became a thing. The other thing that's not in that photo was, Arden, you found that solar fountain. So we actually had a water fountain in the pond that was solar powered that would just be spritzing water up all the time.
Yeah, it was more economical than like a fish tank pump.
Yeah.
But it was at least something to help keep the water moving a little bit.
It was also pretty aesthetic. It added something to it. It was really nice.
It was cute.
It was cute. Like, I'm going to see if I can find some other photos of just the alchemy setup in general, because really, I feel a need to sing the praises here, because all the guilds, honestly, really set up great spaces. People went in very hard on their gardens and alchemy, because it was actually part of the game, where, number one, they had to be harvesting and making things in those little garden beds. But two, there was also a competition for who had the best garden bed, who had the best alchemy setup. And the one in the guild was just, magnifique.
I was joking that our setup doesn't jingle, it folds. But it got a fair amount of jingle as well.
It got a fair amount of jingle. I'm not gonna lie. There was some jingly there. I'm gonna skip that song. It's a little too loud and boomery right now. Too much kaboom. Let me see if I can find, because I know some people had some really good photos of it. Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna abuse Melissa's. Melissa had some very good photos. So if I bring this down here, so you can see what the garden beds look like. Like, we actually had this really phenomenal biome setup where each garden had its own biome and critters and stuff living in it. This is the one I got to set up. We found out that the hardware store 10 minutes from the site had everything we needed. Like, everything down to, like, bags of lava rocks. Wild stuff. That's the blue. Yeah, those are the blue gardens. But yeah, you can see some of the, like, main guild alchemy garden there. But, like, talking about Drachenfest in general. So, the overall setup was shockingly smooth, went really well. I know there's a lot of thoughts and opinions on how to do it, and you know, you get 10 LARPers in a room, you'll have 20 opinions. I feel like they really handled the load in, load out very well. The early arrivals for setting up the main town and the bazaar were there. We got our stuff done. We were all moving all of our stuff out before the first players arrived. Really smooth setup that way, which is pretty nice. And then it meant I threw all this on a day early because that was the hottest day we were there. I think it was in the upper 80s and really sunny. That was Tuesday. And I went, I need to do the heat check. Am I going to black out wearing all this stuff? So I put the full kit on and proceeded to march all the way around past all the camps. And it was miserable, but I got up and down. There's this hill that the Scadians famously named Cardiac Hill. Yeah, we all got real familiar with that. I think we're now calling it Booty Butte because everyone who had to go up and down it like 50 or more times for story reasons wound up coming out being like, my ass looks really good right now. So there's so many things to talk about. I'm not even sure where to begin. I know there were some general questions that I had on my Discord. Because I know Esrai was asking a few things. And, you know, I'll start here. And Arden, feel free to chime in on some of this. One of the questions we got asked was, what gear do you bring that you find the most useful? And I find that's very subjective to where you're going to be going. But the things that I find universally, the best thing you can bring extra towels. If you were planning to bring N towels, bring N+1 towels. Having dry towels will absolutely save your morale. So many points. It'll just make you happy. We were also very blessed that they had laundry and dryers on site. So we actually brought 3 rolls of quarters with us to ensure we could dry our gear out at the end of the day.
I am going to speak in favor of extra socks.
Extra socks.
I'm going to speak in favor of a sewing kit because I always bring one, and that usually has safety pins, needle and thread, a couple of things, but usually also some E6000.
The other thing I would argue strongly for is bring a pillow.
Oh, of course, a pillow.
Because we didn't have room in the caravan. We literally ran out of room. We had to leave our pillows home, and that meant I was rolling up my cloak to use as a pillow. It hurt.
Another thing that I found indispensable is something to keep yourself organized, because the more organized you are, the less fumbling you are going to be doing in a tent in the dark. When we do LARPs in cabins, I usually bring one of those over-the-door coat hooks and hang it on the bunk bed. If we are in a tent, I'll bring some of those folding storage cubes that go in those little drawer sets to put small personal items in.
The folding drawers are good. I think also if you have a folding drying rack, that can really save you a lot of angst.
Drying rack. The camp cots that I bought had these little attachments that go on the side that had mesh zip pockets.
You know what? If you want,
those were also really great for small items.
Ping me the link to the cots and the mesh things here on Discord. I can post those into chat because they're such a good item. I think we should probably share those.
I will go look for that.
I would also say the other good thing to bring, you can find these on Amazon dirt cheap. They use AAA batteries. Go look for these mini flashlights that are specifically meant to find when your pets miss. Essentially, what they're designed for. It's a miniature black light for basically finding, pee spills. When your dog or your cat has, an accident, you can be like, oh, now I can definitively identify where I need to clean. For being on a site, particularly if you are in a shared camping environment or you're going through in-game or out-of-game areas, turning on a flashlight at night can be really bad for people's immersion. It can be really bad for just people getting blinded by it, because no one wants to be walking and suddenly find themselves flashbanged because you couldn't find the bathroom. A blacklight flashlight will not go that far. It's not very disruptive. You'll be able to see what you're doing. The blacklight flashlight is the way to go. You will not wake up your tent mates when you're looking around to try to figure out where did I put my tunic at 1 a.m. because you have to go get back in character for some scene or something. Or maybe you're waking up in the morning and say, I want to go buy a coffee. And you don't know where your wallet is. You can be looking for that at dark 30 and not waking up your tent mates because you can see what you're doing. You're not just fumbling around looking for everything. So those miniature blacklight flashlights, look for them on Amazon. They're really cheap. They usually come in 3 or 4 packs, honestly. Really good piece of kit. Really good piece of kit. Is there anything you bring that you often regret taking?
I'm going to throw the link to the camp cot in the chat. I found it, the same model on Amazon, so I'm going to do that right now.
You can try to throw it in the chat. It may not let you post the link. The worst case, send it to me if it doesn't let you post the link. Because I know a lot of the streaming services block links because, unfortunately, we get crappy people doing crappy things. So if it doesn't work, just send it to me directly. Just DM it to me here. Things that you regret bringing. The only thing I regretted bringing, honestly, I overpacked mundane clothes. I overpacked clothes that I thought I would need that took up space in my, what's the word I'm looking, my luggage that I didn't need to bring. And I was like, wow, I really didn't need to bring that. I didn't use any of these t-shirts. I didn't use any of these extra socks because I just go in moccasins without socks. So I was like, wow, I could have saved so much room by not bringing these. So that was kind of a, I wasn't totally thrilled with that. The one thing that we did bring that I was very happy to bring that I made use of extensively was I brought a slow cooker because I knew we'd have electrical hookups. So that was good. If you're going to be doing that sort of on-site cooking thing, the slow cooker is the way to go, honestly. A lot of people are kind of learning that cooking over open coals looks really cool, but it's its own art form if you're not used to it. Whereas I'm like, yeah, slow cooker. Start it the night before, take care of it in the morning before everyone else is woken up, and you're good.
We were fortunate to be in a part of the site that had RV hookups. So when we were mapping out the spaces, I specifically requested that alchemy be near water and power, and they delivered on that. And it worked out fantastically. So it became very funny because I would be most of the day in the full troll kit as Ogg. I will not do the Ogg voice. My voice is shot from screaming and hasn't recovered yet. But we had our characters for, because you were playing Caeru Bluehands, who was your character at Nero for a number of years. And, you know, we decided, and it was an easy sell at the time. Be like, oh, well, our characters will be married in game because we're already married out of game and it gives us an excuse to be around. So now your in-game husband, Gabriel, was like the house husband, right? At Nero, it was, oh, Caeru is Gabriel's wife. Now it's like, no, Gabriel is Bluehand's husband. Because I was just this sort of presence in the guild that would, like, clean things up in the morning, make sure there was food, remind everyone to drink water, and then occasionally mix a cocktail. Yes. Gabriel is a multi-talented character. He has led armies. He's rebuilt kingdoms from scratch. He also can make a great lamb stew and mix a mean cocktail.
It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. So, yeah, I there's very few things I usually regret bringing. Usually if I regret bringing something, it's because I bring something and don't use it. Like if I, like there, and I know what not to bring.
That is how I felt about my armor, which, granted, I wasn't sure whether I was going to use it or not. I ended up not.
It's why I left my bow at home, because I was like, will I use the bow and the LARP arrows? And I never would have got an opportunity. I barely fought at this event, really, if we're being honest. But, you know, we've gotten to a point where we're smart enough to not pack the things we don't need. What items do you find yourself wishing you had? Ooh, that's a good one. At this campsite, we didn't really have a problem because they had the camp store. Because I went, man, I wish I had extra tech spikes so I could go and prop up my armor stand because it was falling over in the wind. And I went, oh, wait, they do have extra tent spikes and rope, so I can go get it. So there was really no scenario where we were on the Cooper's Lake site and saying, oh, man, I wish I could have brought this. Because they had it. They just had it. It was pretty much all there. FYI, that link does not work. Oh, hold on. You know what? Let me do this. I'm gonna follow the link on Discord to the actual site. Cause the scuff is real. Visit site. Yes. Here we go. And now I have an Amazon link. There we go. Bam. Done. I'll delete that other one. I fixed it. Huzzah. So there really wasn't anything that we really regretted. I mean, I know there's been times when we've overpacked in the past and we're like, well, we didn't use that at all. And that usually goes into the, are we going to bring it next time sort of question mark list. How do you handle issues with your costume in the field? I mean, Arden kind of answered that already by having the sewing kit. I bring an actual repair kit for my armor. So I'll have extra leather strips that already have pre-punched holes for doing quick repairs. I'll have rivets. I will have 550 paracord that's already got the ends burnt on it so I can lace it through and tie it off real fast. So I kind of bring everything that I need to fix the kit as I go. Thankfully, we haven't had any like disastrous weapon breakage because that, you know, there's silicone and latex weapons. That's not really the easiest thing in the world to repair. Usually at that point, you kind of have to replace them, especially if you're at an event. So I actually had 1 or 2 armor breakages that were small ones, but I was able to repair them in like 10 minutes just because I brought the pliers and the tools that I needed. I had the mental kit ready for what needed to come with.
Yep, a little bit of paracord, a lighter, a candle, scissors.
Yeah, you know, you kind of just bring what you know you need. In scenarios that allow it, what do you think makes the best gifting trinket? So that happened a lot here. I have some of the things that I was given actually here. And one of the things I was doing as Ogg, as my troll, is whenever someone gave me something, I would try to attach it to the armor. So if you ever saw the movie Labyrinth, had David Bowie and all the Jim Henson Muppets, there was a scene where there was like the garbage collectors who had just kept adding all this useless stuff on the back of these horrible goblins, but they kept ascribing value to it because it should be valuable. So that whole like perceived value is value, even though the perception is altered. So it's like it's a fake valuation. So anyone who gifted something to Ogg, it immediately became important and Ogg had to put it on the armor. That's why adding bric-a-brac. So I added a bunch of like random pieces of jewelry people gave me and all this other random stuff. People would give like polished stones, pieces of jewelry, particular beads. I got 2, I'm hoping, facsimile human teeth, which I have to hot glue.
One of the smartest things I saw was a player who had who'd gotten a bunch of odd pendants and put lobster clasps on them so that they could be clipped to anything. They gifted us some of those as a guild, and I used them as decorative banner weights to keep our banners from flapping around too much.
Yeah, I know a few people have. If you want to give like a bigger gift, one of the usually the best received sort of I want to give a big gift to people thing is you give them a bottle of mead. Like you show up and say, I'm being hospitable, I'm bringing you a bottle of mead. And that happened in Drachenfest Germany, where I was showing up to like someone's camp area. That was Harla, who played Cormac. But I met Cormac in the field and I found he was actually in Gold Camp. I said, well, you know what? I'll show up later with a bottle of tour mead. He went, sure, do it. So true to my word, I went to the vendor. I bought 2 bottles of mead. I showed up and he went, you came. And I went, and I brought mead. And he went, my friend. And it's a quick way to secure friendship of showing up with like good booze, right? So there was a lot of that. Gifting food. If you're like me and you're making that slow cooker and you have lots of food, asking people, hey, have you eaten? Do you want food? So it's a type of gifting. I think it's really more of a type of hospitality, but it is a type of gifting. Just being like, hey, do you got a bowl on you? Come get some food.
Also, alchemy players love a fancy bottle.
Yes, alchemy players love the fancy bottles. So knowing your target audience. I know the Blue Camp herbalists gave us a blue clawed crab critter sort of little monster piece because it had to go to guild mistress Blue Hands. So we got the crab with blue hands going to the guild master with the blue hands. So
yes, Dart messaged to ask me if I got the crab.
Oh yeah, I made sure to give you Blue's crabs. Yeah, Blue Camp gave you crabs. The troll gave you crabs. So that happened. And like this event was so really amazing to me because I had played in Drachenfest Germany with Arden. We were in Gold Camp. which meant we were part of the overall structure of players who were engaged in the game of dragons, right? The competitive warfare of trying to accumulate dragon eggs through various means. And that meant you were in a particular mindset. You were in a competitive footing. You were in a war footing for me. You know, am I defending my gate? Am I assaulting someone else's gate? Are we assisting our allies? Whereas now I was playing as a bazaar character, and being in the bazaar, we got these insignias. Shai actually made these amazing custom ones for us, which I think were better because they stood out a lot more. They were very vibrant. They were very bright. And if you're a bazaar player, you are functionally neutral till you choose to forego the protection of the bazaar. So I can't really go in and start picking fights with people. But people generally aren't going to start picking fights with me because they know I'm with the bazaar, what have you. I generally didn't wear the bazaar insignia as Ogg because I kind of wanted people to pick fights with me. But, and it was a fun way to cause, you know, drama later, you know.
If you're getting mercenaried out, you also take it off.
Yeah, if you're getting sold out for a task, you do that. We actually had a sign on the side of the guild that said "Troll for Hire," and no one bought it during the week. Actually, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought people would actually buy in on that for, like, you know, siege purposes or something. No one hired Ogg all week. So, but I got to do other things, and we'll get to that.
Well, now they know Ogg.
Now they know Ogg.
Do they ever?
Do they ever? So, running around, and it was very interesting to me because I wanted to show up with this very particular idea of what I was going to roleplay in mind, and this character Ogg came from a pretty, like, grimdark game. It's literally about the end of the world in like 4 seasons of gameplay, and you know, he's one of these this race of creatures called the Jotunar. It's a very sort of Viking epic cycle inspired thing of the second Damarung is coming, the second ending of the world, and Ogg is a Skog troll. And the sort of background of all of this is that the Jotunar used to be the bright and shining people. Like, imagine Tolkien's high elves, except they really don't mind keeping humans as pets or forced labor, and occasionally eating them. But they were the bright and shining and beautiful people, the beautiful high elves. The sort of disturbing part of it is whenever Jotunar die, when they reincarnate, they lose a little sliver of themselves. A chunk of their soul just kind of withers away. So Ogg is this monstrous creature who could only talk in caps lock and had this very stunted vocabulary and limited means of expression and hyper violent and easily fixated and distracted. But it came from this place of like, oh no, how far has this creature fallen? So we didn't get into that in Drachenfest. I got to Drachenfest and saw like, man, this is not going to work here. And we briefly discussed like, oh, well, what if we did like an alchemy thing to kind of restore some of Ogg's mind? Like, no, that's too depressing. That makes this into flowers for Algernon. That's so depressing. I realized so quickly, this is not, while there are times for gravitas and times for serious and like really sad moments and heavy moments, it's not really a type 2 game. It was very much a type 1 game. People were joyous and like trying things out. And there was a lot of new role players and first time role players, which amazed me. There was first time LARPers at this event. Like, they're ruined for life if this is the first time out the gate, if this is what they get.
Yeah, there is space for type 2 fun, but it usually involves finding a bunch of people who want to opt into it.
Yeah, or the Limbus,
planning.
or the Limbus,
or the Limbus. A lot of angst came out of dealing with death.
The Limbus is definitely a type 2 kind of zone, I would say, because that is where you go to resurrect. But I realized I couldn't play this character the way I wanted to. I had to completely rework what I was going to do on the fly. And I kind of hit on this idea. What if I make Ogg like those videos you see of people feeding the bears from their cars in Yellowstone Park in the 1950s? Like, you know, this is a terrible idea, but it's kind of endearing. It's like you get this sort of Saturday morning cartoon villain vibe, but it's not like grimdark vibe. Hey, Piano Fetish, welcome on in. I apologize, my voice is still shot. So I wanted to have something where it's like, okay, clearly this creature is not tame. It's not good. It very blatantly calls people food. You know, like that was like one of the first things I hit on for the character. Hey, Amanda, what's up? Was that I would not refer to people as people. Everyone was default food. Be like, it would like just scream people. So if people like, food, get over here. Food, what are you doing? Food is talking too much, you know, and like everyone was food. Let people know where they are in Ogg's brain's hierarchy. And then if Ogg kind of grew to tolerate you, you would get named a specific type of food. The only exception to that was Arden's character, Caeru, because Caeru was kind of the person in charge. So like, oh, no, they're the boss. So they're Caeru. They're Caeru. But everyone else in the guild was like, you know, snack. We were talking about Kira. I can't remember Kira's character's name because I only called Kira's character's name Tasty. Because Kira hit on this idea of keeping jars of gummy worms in their pockets all the time. It was like, Ogg, look, Ogg snack. And would just distract Ogg from whatever horrible thing was about to happen with food. And just jabate Ogg away. And they would like shove a gummy worm through that leather mask. Like if I can show you, there's holes in the mask. They would just shove a gummy worm through the hole in the mask. And I'd start slurping it through the leather mask. And everyone watching it would be like, oh!
Yeah, when Ogg got hired out eventually as a mercenary, I gave a tube of Ogg snacks to another mercenary going into that battle. Like, just in case you need them.
Just in case you need them. Yeah, Amanda knew Bluehands, or another Amanda's characters. Amanda ran an event where we were at, playing our couple, and went back in the day at Nero. It was like in 2018. I think it was the last Nero event that happened, actually. So, yeah, the Ogg snacks were totally a thing. And it meant that I got to tap into this other energy. Suddenly, I wasn't playing this angsty, horrible, fallen creature, fallen from greatness. Suddenly I was playing Sweetums from The Muppet Show. Right? And that was a lot of fun. And it also meant that I could bring people in who weren't looking to have a heavy, angsty, I want to use too many words and gaze into the sunset and talk about all I have lost kind of roleplay moment. They could be like, oh, we can have this moment of, oh God, wow, that troll's really tame. It's not tame. Wait, what? You know, and just let people roll around with it. And the energy there was so good because Ogg would have a terrible idea. And then all of the alchemy guild would be like, okay, Ogg. And then they go, well, wait a minute. Ogg's not wrong. I think as people sort of clued into that fact, like Ogg wasn't smart, but Ogg wasn't dumb.
Yeah, that's if anything scarier.
Yeah.
Then yeah, also the frog eating.
The frog.
That was just a recurring bit.
You tell that one because this is like a recurring bit at the Alchemy Guild because we have to teach classes. So now I was there this year.
So Ogg's best way of disrupting anything was grabbing and pretending to eat one of the plastic frogs from the garden and proceeding to trip balls.
So this was kind of a running bit where Arden as Bluehands would be explaining the hazardous creatures in the garden, why you need gloves, how do you harvest them. Why are the classes 4 hours long? Because unfortunately, there's a ton of shit. And let me frame this another way. You're not getting a 4-hour class. You're getting 4 hours of engagement and content with your peers. And it's a choice of where do I want to advance my character? Because one of the stakes of the game, believe it or not, is that they want you to choose where you put your value. Because you can really only attend 1 or 2 classes every year, and you're only going to get 1 skill every year. So it is a glacially slow progression by design. This is true in Germany as well. So you kind of have to be like, okay, is this worth it for me to do? And then what do I bring back to my camp with this value? And at that point, the other question is can we, as good role players, provide you with the value that you're not sitting there being bored, being like talked at? You want to be engaged. And I'll say the alchemy class leaders did a pretty good job of keeping people engaged and really just like, oh, here's weird shit that can happen and fun stuff. There's some unexpected bits, like when the pin fell out of the grenade. Literally happened. A pin fell out of an airsoft grenade for the explosives demo. Yeah. I mean, part of that was also when we did the herbalism course. I took people out on the nature walk to the other side of the campground beyond the lake, and as Ogg, and that was kind of fun because Ogg was actually teaching a course in the Alchemy Guild, was teaching the herbalism and harvesting and gathering course. And I went, man, how do I go and add some extra value to this? Because I had walked it the day before and I found really cool spots to sort of hide things, and then people could go and find stuff and do things. But I'm like, man, I want to add a little bit of something. And it was kind of a cloudy early morning. And I went, you know what? I'm going to make this an existential kind of weird horror moment. Oh, the surgeons were great with all the blood and guts and whatnot. Because we're right near I-79.
Wonderful.
So you had the sound of these trucks going by. So I actually went out with Becky Kindergan and was like snapping photos of actual plants so I could tell people, oh no, this is poison ivy, this is poison oak, this is jewelweed, and you can use this with beeswax, and that's how you can fix your poison ivy. If you see all these skunk cabbages, that means there's mud. Don't run there, you'll sink, you'll lose a boot. So they were actually getting real world knowledge over the course of doing this walk. But I get them down to where we're about to leave past Blue Camp and go on that like about a mile walk around the other side of the lake. And I'm doing the Ogg voice and telling them we are at the edge of the Dragon Isles. We are near the mist. Not everyone who tried to come here made it through the mist. You're going to hear things, whispering or crying or begging, or you might see people you know trying to get you to follow them into the woods. Don't go. If you go, I'm not coming to get you back. Stay out of the mist. So everyone's like, oh, that's a little weird. And then we have to go into this really dark, shady glen area where it was literally completely like much darker. And it's very dark. There's all these little wooden bridges and a truck goes by and you hear down across the thing in the woods. And all of a sudden, kudos to everyone who was role playing because they're just like, oh, because now they're hearing things and like, stay out of the woods. So they're all a little paranoid while they're hunting for, you know, their stuff out in the woods. And it was a lot of fun. It was kind of neat to do that. And then we walked past Limbus on the way back. And I was telling him, this is a place of badness, of death. Don't look away. Because if you look at it, it will look at you. And if it sees you, it can touch you. And just putting this fear of the area into them. So it was like, oh, spreading this atmosphere. And I think that was the big thing. People built atmosphere at this event in amazing ways. So like that was a little bit of a creepy atmosphere, and the camps all built up their own individual sense of energy and atmosphere, and all the enterprises in the bazaar had this atmosphere about them and this energy. The surgeons in the Bacaro felt like the sort of like low town, rough part of town. You know, the alchemists were the middle of everything in the central. It was very neat and organized and beautified. You know, the brass brigade, who were like these Keystone Cop characters, they were amazing. Charlie was doing that. And they would just cause havoc trying to like police the town. And they were amazing. Just amazing.
The lamplighters, who were a constant source of shenanigans.
The lamplighters, who were literally the people who would out of game go around and light all the tiki torches around the walkways in town. But then they started like having like an entire thing about how like the election for town was stolen, how they weren't getting paid, they should be allowed to unionize, and they actually brought all these foam bricks and started a riot. They started throwing foam bricks. So there's a lot of room for self-expression there. So here I am playing Ogg for all of this, and I'm running around and I'm speaking in this very loud, like Ogg is a caps lock that's stuck, right? Yes, they were absolutely a highlight. I think the other thing to point out here as we're telling all these things, you can't see the whole elephant, and that was true in Germany as it is here. No one can see the entire event. The things that we'll talk about at this event, other people are like, wait, there was a riot in the middle of the bazaar? Because if they were doing camp stuff, they're probably more invested in their camp or what their camp is doing for battlefields down on the field. So it's kind of amazing how the politics of the event evolve. It's a very butterfly effect kind of thing where people will do something in the bazaar, but then it permeates down to the camps, or people do something camp and then it percolates back up into the bazaar. So with Ogg, pardon me because my voice is still shot. I'm chugging so much water and Gatorade. Some people kind of latched on to the fact that I'm really good at shtick comedy, especially selling physical comedy, and like I do the voice acting and whatnot, and I have like all my stuff. I'm walking around like the character walks. I'm getting into like the movement theory of my character, to sound pretentious about it. The Bardic Guild comes up to me and goes, hey, you know, out of play, would you be cool with having Ogg at the Bardic competition? And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more. And basically they were going to be doing this Bardic competition for all of the dragon avatars. And it was going to be done like Apollo Theater style, where the bards had 3 minutes. And if they went over 3 minutes, rather than have a hook pull them off the stage, they wanted the troll to go berserk and chase them off the stage. And I immediately went, oh, I'm so in. Let's go. Now, they had never met me before. They didn't know me from other games, so they didn't really know what they were getting. Meanwhile, I'm here in my mind going, oh, I'm about to have a real good time. So the bards are all coming down and setting up, and they're setting up in front, and I come over the hill stomping, and I'm carrying one of the Stargazer wood chairs, and I slam it onto the ground next to the stage. And all the bards are kind of looking at me. And then I get up on the stage and I grab a broom and I just start sweeping all these pebbles and rocks off the stage. And they're all looking at me, and all the bards like, oh, good, Ogg, you made it. Thank goodness. You know, thank you. Like, I'm like, eh. So like, I'm being like this troll roadie who's cleaning and sweeping. Everyone's like, what's going on? And then the bards explain the rules and how if you go over, you get Ogg. So I'm watching them, and they had a bell, and every time I started shooting the bell, I'd be like, I'd be rocking in the chair. I'd start standing up slowly. I'd start rocking in the chair a whole bunch. And people are looking over like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And they had to finish. And some people didn't finish in time. And I would just go berserk up onto the stage screaming. And you want to sell a different little bit of physical comedy every time. So I think one time, like, I did that. I jumped up, and the person just screamed and jumped off the stage. And I saw they were gone already, but I grabbed the wood chair off the stage like I was about to throw it at them. And I did the whole like, huh? And I'm looking down at the judges. And then I look up at the audience. And I slowly put the chair down and give it a dust off and just walk off the stage. Like, no, I wasn't about to beat that person to death with a chair. Of course not. That would never happen. And at this point, the people, who was that? I think Micah and Ricky. And I can't say enough good things about Micah and Ricky, because seriously, between the two of them, Micah was playing every instrument known to man and being super generous with his time, and just a real sweetheart. And I don't know how else to describe Ricky other than majestic. Arden, I mean, just this incredibly statuesque person who's like an operatic singer and is like showing up, and looked like they fell off an absinthe bottle in the 1700s with this outfit they're wearing.
Yes. They were both delightful, and they are both lovely human beings to interact with.
Like the full like overbust corset and the giant poofy things, and there's panniers and a giant like ruffled hat with feathers everywhere. So they're both looking at me like doing this. They're like, oh, we picked well. I'm like, oh, you have no idea. So I'm having a grand old time with it. If it got to like, they were about to ring the bell and they'd stop, I would get up and then be like, brr, and throwing grass. Or one time I like kicked my chair over, like I was like Ogg's getting blue balled basically, cause you know he wants to go smash people. So that all happens, and then they get to the end and they have to do their deliberations. And the audience starts like trying to sort of put together a little bit of a sea shanty. I'm like, oh, I can't have dead air. It's not acceptable. So I get up on the stage. I start screaming, that's not a sea shanty. You want a real sea shanty? And I conveniently forgot there are minors in the audience.
For once, I think Ogg's relative incoherence was a plus for the situation.
And and bear in mind, the blue avatar, who's like the water avatar, the pirate rum drinking avatar, is standing right there. And there's a lot of blue camp people right there. So they're like, yeah, Ogg, sing a sea shanty. Show us how it's done. Oh, what does this troll know? And I launch into Asshole Rules the Navy. I had them all singing along to Asshole Rules the Navy by the end of it. I dedicated it to the blue avatar, who I figured was either going to laugh or kill me, and he was into it. He was into it. And it was cool, and then by then they'd finished their thing, because it's like a minute and a half, 2-minute song. There's not a lot to it. And I get off the stage. The bards finish their thing. They get their deliberations. They're done. And everyone just had a grand old time with it. And then the bards, because I performed on stage, these people start chanting for. The people start telling me, like, Ogg, you should totally win this song. I'm like, because I'm like, I can't win because I'm a bazaar player. If a bazaar player shouldn't be winning a dragon egg, that has to go to a camp, because that's a victory condition, right? So I'm like, nah. But the bards vote unanimously, and Ogg gets inducted as a bard. So Ogg is now in bardic. So yes, multifaceted troll, our Ogg. Funny as hell. But it just, like, these are just sort of these emergent moments that happen. And Drachenfest is fantastic for this, because you can just do things. So much of what alchemy did, of what you were encouraging people to do, was do experimental alchemy. If you want to expand upon that, and some things did, Arden.
Sure, yeah. So one thing that I really wanted to encourage when I started working on stuff for the Alchemists Guild was that I wanted to encourage some of the yes and improv experimentation that I'd seen people engage in Germany, because, and Olopi will probably remember.
You should tell the German story about this, how you blew up the Alchemist Guild once or twice, and like the body you bought that wasn't a body.
Maybe an yeah, blew up repeatedly, maybe an exaggeration. I was barely involved. But the folks that I rolled with in Germany were a couple of Israeli players there were three, it was a crew of 3, and they were hilarious. They were the experimental alchemists, and their whole thing was, they had written a whole thesis on experimental herbal alchemical medicine, also pronounced echem.
Echem.
So half of their shtick was getting people to try the echem, which was taking a piece of candy from a jar and then drawing a piece of paper with an effect on it. And they would take it very, very, very seriously. And
they would be documenting the effect. Oh, yes,
I was
yes.
the person writing down what happened.
Write that down. Write that down.
Yep.
It would literally, was write that down role play.
And we had an absolute blast. We had some absolute super nonsense. Like at one point we got involved in some town plot where we were trying to get a deal to get medical care for the old people. So we decided we would trade dead body to the field hospital in exchange.
To pause for reference, yes. There were 4 people in the bazaar, in the Drachenfest Germany bazaar, playing these 4 elderly men who would just sort of sit on the side of the road and catcall and cackle and just make comments about everyone as they walked by. They were basically just sort of be like, you adventurers in my day. That's what they did the whole event, and they had a ball. So like that's who, then when we say the old people, that's who we're talking about. But please proceed.
Yeah. So it was part of this whole thing where we were trying to get free medical care for the old people. So we figured, we found a dead body, we'll trade it to the field hospital. As it turns out, the player misunderstood the rules and wasn't dead. The character was not dead. So we're like, see, we just transported a patient to you. We still deserve this. And then they're like, okay, fine, we'll allow some of it. And we're like, since we helped out this man, can we test the ahem on him? Since this is a supervised, safe setting. And it was stuff like that would happen all the time. And I wanted to make sure, with as much structure and rules as alchemy has, that there was, a little bit of fuck around energy.
Speaking of fuck around energy, some people in chat are asking about the pooping potion.
Oh God, that
The literal shitpost.
I was literally not even involved in that. That was all.
That was player driven. That was all player driven.
All player driven. Experimental alchemy, by definition, is subject to a random outcome. It might succeed, it might fail, it might have interesting backlash or unintended consequences, and we work with people to storytell that. So people tend to bring us their experimental stuff. Yeah, this one I had no idea about until I heard about it after the event.
Basically, the guy wanted to create something. I
credit them with their ingenuity.
He was trying to make a potion that would essentially make people crap themselves.
So that so did it work?
I don't know. I know Dart at one point apparently went and like painted their legs brown to be a literal shit goblin. I don't know if that's the same alchemy or not. That might have been a misfire on their own alchemy. We don't know the answer to this question.
Yeah. Misfire is a really apt term for this.
Misfire is a really apt term for this. Like the one guy, we were talking about this in the drive there because we were workshopping how to do a mechanic. And I was saying, I'm very verbally against dice in live roleplay, whether that's VR roleplay or live action. I'm very against dice being in the setting as a mechanic because I feel like it drags people out. But I love having decks of cards where people can sort of like draw their fate. You can almost kind of, invoke the gods a little bit, even with just simple bicycle cards.
That's fun. You can do it with a simple card deck. You could even do it with a tarot deck.
And
if you really wanted to get into some fun.
And the nice thing is you can also stack the deck in a way to be like, okay, well, we can now make this a little more likely to succeed or a little more likely to fail by manipulating the deck. So you have more control over it.
There are plenty of ways to do randomization in game, and I think that after we've been, facilitating that a fair bit, people will start to get their own ideas about what makes an interesting fail condition.
So I bring this up because we were talking about the lich potion.
Oh, for the magic school that doesn't exist.
The which lich is which?
The witch well, then there was leeching the lich.
Yes, the witch leech leech the witch lich. So yes, so you explain this.
Don't lick the leech.
Don't lick the leech.
Which part?
Let's start from the beginning on this one because we were working this out on the way to the site for how to perfect this.
Yeah. I'm not gonna go. I can give the thumbnail sketch version.
Let's do that so we don't spoil anything for people. We'll do a thumbnail sketch.
So this was an experimental project, and we asked the person who was playing the customer, are you good with us bringing a couple different versions and doing this experimentally to see which one works and how much? Yeah, long story short, like that was a fun little scene, but we didn't get to it until late Friday night. So part of our beginning of the event scramble around was working on these different versions and putting stuff together, and some just fun emergent stuff that came across our desk. And so we ended up with three different versions of the potion. We tried two. One was a partial fail, and one was a almost complete success.
Just gonna put some of this stuff in the background here. Go ahead.
So that was a fun little thing to storytell. It was also like interaction between two different schools of magic, and my character has no background in magic. Absolutely no clue what they're doing as far as magic is concerned. So that's always fun to play with. It's like, I don't know how or why this works, but I'm gonna try it anyway. It doesn't make any sense.
Getting those opportunities to sort of blur the lines between the various enterprises or disciplines in the game is always a lot of fun because it's not meant to be a game where one person can do everything, right? It's meant to be if you want to do something, you should go find people to collaborate with. And those people you need to collaborate with may not be from your camp because it can tell a better story, right?
Oh yeah, it is always a good time to be able to loop someone in who is from a completely different background within the game and be able to take them on a little bit of a ride.
Yeah.
Or they'll take you on a little bit of a ride.
Or mutually. I mean, the goal is to put that energy out there and give people the opportunity to pick things up. Like one of the things I really clued in on really hard on this event, and VR roleplay has made me much better at this, was I was able to be a lot more generous with my character, I think. Like, I didn't want to be the hero. I didn't want to be the 1980s Hulk Hogan character. I wanted to kind of hit that, like, Randy Savage. I am totally a heel. I'm playing a heel character, but even if the heel loses a whole lot, you still believe they're strong. There's something there, you know. It's not just dismissible. And I feel a lot of people brought that to the game in terms of their energy, because they would do things, then people could do things back, and you could interact and play back and forth and really sell it in really great ways. And then you saw that a lot with the enterprises between, like, blacksmiths and alchemists, between the Mages Guild, especially the Mages Guild. The Mages Guild was phenomenal for the way they were playing to lift. Oh, hon, I think you might be muted.
Sorry. Yeah, the Magic Guild are some of the most generous role players that I have ever encountered. We are great friends from other games where we used to run around with our necromancy crew, and they are a blast. Like, I am always grateful when we can do something together.
Yeah, I mean, it was also fun to see, like, kind of like the variation on a theme. Like, we didn't see the same thing. Like, people had like 5 or 6 different flavors of what they thought magic was. And one of my favorites was Pierre, because I knew Pierre back in the Nero days. And Pierre shows up in this, like, bone breastplate, is the only mage in the Mages Guild not wearing the big magic hat. Pierre has this shaved head, and the thing to know about Pierre is a large man and also a professional wrestler. So when I say Pierre and I could look at one and be like, hey, do you want to do a spot where we throw one another through a table? He's like, oh yeah, let's do it. Pierre's concept of being a mage was being the muscle mage. So when they hired him out as a mercenary,
a tank,
he literally showed up at the camp that hired him to be a mage with a full, like, massive drinking horn full of fake blood, and starts dousing himself in it and screaming into the air. And he's chugging blood and, like, doing mist spots and blasting, like, aspirating blood all over his sword and screaming at everyone. And they're like, we thought you were a mage. He's like, yes, we will prepare for battle. His character's name was Bresnar. So he was like this barbarian muscle magician, and it was amazing.
Oh yeah, Bresnar is just on another level.
Bresnar was so good, and he had all this great role play, because he had a thing, like, his story wound up in our kind of play space, because he had a ritual that went wrong last Drachenfest. So he had all these, like, bone spurs growing out of them, and they brought it up to, like, the surgeons and the alchemists, and then we're all collaborating, trying to figure out what was going on there. And I don't want to spoil it for people, because these are ongoing stories that are still happening that'll be there next year.
Let's just say we have some of those in a jar.
There
now.
are samples. There's a lot of samples. The alchemists love samples. If you find weird shit in your camp and put it in a glass jar and bring it to an alchemist, oh, they're gonna love you.
Yeah, I can see this turning into a bit of a logistical problem as the event scales up, but anytime we are short on something to do, pulling something out of the collection of weird stuff that we've been given is always a good start for something.
It's a pretty good time.
The tongue fizz rep I was given
the tongue of a liar, that whole thing.
The tongue, well, yeah, I'm gonna have to tell this story from last year.
Yes.
Because it's too funny. And yeah, it was a gift that turned into another scene. So someone gives me this tongue at the beginning of the event, and I'm like, okay, I have an idea for this, but we're probably not gonna get to it yet. And so I put it in a glass jar, I put it in the back of the lab. On the last night there, Saturday night after the final battle, I'm mixing drinks because we have made the Saturday night garden party a little bit of a tradition while the whole bazaar is celebrating. There are usually mystery potions. There is usually a lot of hanging out and enjoying the garden.
For reference, a mystery potion is where we put a fishbowl out full of tags, and we start making mixed batches of mixed drinks that we put into the alchemy vials. So it'll be like a vodka and cranberry, or like a gin and tonic or something. And it's essentially like a double shot size sort of drink in a vial. So you pick a vial out of the test tube rack, and then grab a slip of paper, and then figure out what random bullshit what tomfuckery are you about to roleplay for 5 minutes?
We invite the other alchemy players to clear out their inventories by adding effects to the jar.
Yeah.
So it's a fun little validation for our guild members. So I'm doing that, and one of the other guild leads rolls up, who's playing a guy who owns a bar, and we're chatting. And our whole thing, we had arranged this before the event, was that we would have conversations in Spanish, because he wanted to have, you know, multiple languages represented at this event.
Kind of like a salon, like a medieval salon.
Yeah, so we're chatting away in Spanish, and I ask if he wants a drink, and he doesn't have a cup. So I go back into the lab, which is of course in a bit of a mess, and I go looking for a clean
Last day
glass.
shamble. Last day shamble.
Last day shamble is real. So I go and grab what looks like a clean glass, and it was one of the yogurt jars. I stick my hand in it, and I feel something squishy and sticky. And both in and out of character, I shrieked. It took me a minute to realize what it was. So I come out and I realize that I have just stuck my hand in the jar with the tongue in it. So I go out of the tent, I grab like a flower pot or something, and I'm just like, lo siento, señor, no tengo un vaso limpio. El último vaso tiene una lengua.
So basically,
I had to tell him in Spanish, I'm sorry, I don't have a clean glass. The last glass has a tongue in it.
Welcome to Drachenfest. So, like we would be doing that. There was an enterprise behind us that was run by, I call them young people. They're not that young. They're just younger than me. But they were running this thing called the Magpie's Ledger, where they set up an entire, I shit you not, an entire gambling casino and bar. They brought like 7 cases of mead, and they weren't charging you out-of-game money. You paid with in-game currency. You would get actual liquor. You would gamble with in-game currency. And they were having the time of their lives. They were having a blast. Like, it's an interesting question, going back to something that, like, from the questions earlier. Do you bring things you regret? When you look at my Trolls kit, there's all that armor, and I spent like a month building this stuff. But I really didn't fight. Like, it was just part of the scenery of me being this giant lumbering troll, and I don't regret it at all. But it's kind of interesting how you'll build something that's so intricate, and there's all these little details on it that I feel like most people would never see. No one's going to see all these like weird little details I baked into this thing. But because it had that depth of stuff going on to it, a lot of people came up to me later and were telling me, like, man, that really brought me into the game, seeing something that was so lived in, right? And that did
come out super, super cool.
And that was what a lot of it was like, a lot of this world when we got there was kind of like, it was meant to feel, yeah, it kind of rose out of the ocean a week ago, but it has to feel lived in. It has to have that faded pair of jeans quality to it. So there was a lot of that going on. The other thing we got to do, because I did this with Shy, with the other, one of the other guild leads from Alchemy, they, like, so it sort of bridges us into combat. Since we only really get to do this once a year, we have to work with how do we correct things that were challenges last year for the prior Drachenfest at this Drachenfest. You know, there's always going to be that sort of 1 year gap of when change will happen. And one of the things that had come up was that they were like, hey, you know, there was a real thing where people didn't really understand Poison Blade, which is a skill mechanic in the game. And people didn't understand how to use it. They didn't really understand how to make that work. So there was this whole thing like, hey, well, the Fighters Guild is going to be having a tournament to sort of demonstrate what really good theatrical combat can look like, right? We're going to get the various champions from the various camps, and we're going to have a round robin tournament, and we're going to have people do theatrical sort of combat, because this isn't really meant to be a stick jockey sort of like whack, 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 or calling numbers kind of game. It's meant to be much more of a wrestling match. It's a dialogue where you're kind of meant to put on a show. Part of the rules of that tournament were whoever the judges felt really gave the best showing. You know, whether they won or lost the fight was secondary. It was, how do you do this? And the same thing happened in Germany. The Morning Star, the group that did a tournament. The Gold Camp had a tournament for a champion. And it wasn't just, can I beat Face better than anyone else? It's, can I do this in a way where people feel really moved by it in some fashion? Like, Do they love my character for what they did? Do they hate my character for what they did? Was there this sense of urgency about like, oh, what's happening? You know, it has to have that kind of, again, I liken it to a wrestling match. You want to be invested in the story of what this is happening there. So they cook up this thing where they're going to have the alchemists cheat in the fighters tournament, specifically to sort of demonstrate how Poison Blade works. And it kind of evolves over time, and then Shai's like, hey, what if we have Ogg do this? We have the troll do it. It could be kind of cool. And I'm like, cool, I'm down for anything. I will always say yes to whatever you give me. You know, I love pitching scenes. So we get there and we sort of come up with this idea, and then like the one guy who was like kind of cleaning up all the weapons that people are throwing into the arena for people to use, because they're breaking their stuff, they're throwing stuff. They actually had like taekwondo boards that they're like breaking over one another's heads and stuff, and it's very fun. There was some camp, there was some gravitas. It was good. There was generally a lot of really good fights. The one guy there was his first event. A guy named who's going by Jack Wagon. He'd never role played before, but he just rolled around shirtless the whole time. Very handsome young man, very neatly coiffed hair, but he always role played like he was drunk 24/7 because he was from Blue Camp. So Jack is there in the middle of the thing, and like the other Blue Camp goes, Jack, I need a weapon, and Jack's like, buh, and like throws it 5 feet to his right because he's seeing double. Jack was phenomenal. Can't say enough nice things about the guy. So everyone's kind of like throwing weapons and stuff into the arena, and the one guy who's part of the fight is like, I have to clean this shit up. And he's like really riling up the crowd, and he's like, I'll fight any one of you. And Shai's character Larry goes, oh, you'll fight any one of us? He's like, I'll fight any one of you. I'm like, will you fight an alchemist? He's like, I don't care. You get in this ring, I'll fight you. And Larry goes, great, cool. You can fight an alchemist, but not me. And then points over at me, and I just start lumbering down into the fighter pit as Ogg. And everyone's like, oh, what I wasn't ready for. Suddenly the whole audience starts chanting, Ogg, 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 Ogg. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? We didn't know it, but Ogg had somehow become like a town favorite because of the Bardic competition. People love this evil flesh-eating troll. Go fig. But now I have to be a shitbird and cheat in this thing. So I'm like, all right, cool. But the guy is wearing like full armor. And I'm looking around and I see these two sort of people from the Surgeons Guild. And the surgeons were great. They would actually be doing like fake blood spots and like fake stitching and stuff on like latex mats and whatnot to make it look like there was blood and gore and stuff happening. They're on wooden chairs. And I just look at one of them like, hey, get out of the chair. Get out of the chair. I'm like, okay, cool. So we do the thing. We start the fight. And the fight's And I poison him. And he falls over screaming poisoned. And then instead of beating him with the sword, I go over and get the wooden chair and I start clubbing him. Like it looks like I'm beating this man to death with a wooden chair. Berserker troll rage. And Larrikin is like, oh, what are you doing? Because I was supposed to grab Larrikin's sword to do a second poison blade to kill him. And someone's going to dive in with a shield to demonstrate the mechanic of how poison blade doesn't work on shields. So I grab that sword. The kid dives in with the shield and does that. And at this point, 2 other people were supposed to come up and restrain me, but they didn't get up. So I went, heck it, I'm going to keep going. I flipped the sword to do like if you've ever done like medieval like Hema or something, the Mordschlag where you reverse the blades, so you're hitting it like a hammer. I'm just Mordschlagging this skinny young lad with a shield who's now leaning back on the guy who's been beaten to death with a chair, who's just screaming. They finally come over to restrain me, and it's this guy named Sebastian, who's a tremendous role player, great theatrical role player. And I just look at him and I give him the ball, like the pseudo ball tap with the end of the sword, and he sells it to high heaven. He flops over, and I jump on his chest, and I'm choking him, and they club me over the head. And then finally Shai's like, look, Ogg, snacks, snacks. It's like, oh. These are the little stories you get to tell, where we got to demonstrate how a skill worked, how a skill didn't work. We got to go and make a character look strong, but at the same time also be like, yeah, but they didn't actually win anything. We got to do so much with that scene. It was like maybe 3 minutes, but we got to do so much with it. And I feel like some of that got a little bit lost down on the camp side because like people were doing camp politics and stuff. A lot of them who were doing the heavy fighty stuff tended to stay a little closer to their camp because they wanted to be able to defend their camp or go forth and have a siege. So it is one of the big gaps between bazaar life and camp life. So trying to get things in spaces, I feel, where there can be more intersectionality. And this is true in Germany too when I say this. So don't feel like this is something that's a uniquely DFUS issue. The town in Germany, for gold, we were like, I think the second furthest position from town. Green was a little further than us. We had to walk almost like, I think like a straight up, like 3/4 of a mile to get to the town where the bazaar was in Germany. So trying to find ways to get people to have that intersectionality where we can be like, we can demonstrate the out-of-game mechanical aspects of the game in an in-game fashion. Right? Germany, there's so much for some people. It's the other way around. I mean, that was literally me. I didn't know what to do with myself when I would just meander around and make roleplay happen because I kind of decided I wasn't going to take any skills in this character. I wasn't going to learn any skills ever beyond like the alchemy herbalism skills so I can teach the class. Which meant that I would wander up and I would see all these people getting in line for classes at like the Mages Guild or the Fighters Guild or doing stuff with like the Surgeons Guild and whatnot. Like the Surgeons Guild actually wanted to give me a punch card. So for every 10 people, if I could bring 10 people to them to get fixed, they would make me an honorary member of the Surgeons Guild if I could bring them some bite wounds. So that's on the ticket for next year. But yeah. It's very hard to hit the whole event. For me, the biggest challenge was that I was so in my head that when I got out of this kit after 8 or 9 hours, nobody knew who I was. It was really wild. Nobody knew who I was, which just told me I was playing the character right. You get the body language right. You got the voice right. When you drop that, no one knows who you are. But then I'm like, but I don't want to go to any of these parties that are happening down in blue, or I don't want to go to the parties that are happening over at the casino because, you know, no one's going to have a real reason to connect with me. And I feel like I'm going to be out of place. And I was very in my head about that. So I actually didn't go to any of the parties, which were a major part of the event. There was a huge amount of festivities and food and stuff and sharing going on there. And I kind of talked myself out of it. And I regret that. I regret that a lot. I don't know why. It just, I got very in my head. And I admit, I'm pretty famously antisocial at the best of times. You bright people bring them to Surgeons Guilds and fill out the punch card. Yeah, pretty much. That's it. Like, that actually happened in a field fight. There was one guy in the Lamplighters Guild who, a guy named, out of game, his name's Joshua. And we've known one another for years. Great role player, great fighter. Very good technical person with blades and maces. So we have a lot of mutual interest and mutual respect. But I started shouting dumpling at him and how I was going to eat him. Like, dumpling, where are you going? Come back, dumpling. So just I would chase him and he'd be like, oh, and try to like avoid eye contact with Ogg and like run to the other side of the road. You know what? Here's the thing though. If I go down and say, oh, I play Ogg, that is an out of game statement in an in-game space. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't have it in my soul to go somewhere and be in this weird meta narrative, right? And there's ways I could have bridged it, but I couldn't do it. But the Lamplighters got fucked up in a siege. They got hired out. They got mercenaried. And I see him on the side of the road. He's like clutching himself. He's like, oh, he's role-playing injury and none of the surgeons are going to him. So I run up and I'm like, dumpling hurt. And he's like, yeah, dumpling hurt. And I start screaming, dumpling no can die. If dumpling die, Ogg no can eat. So I like pick him up and I'm like manhandling him across an entire battlefield. Like there's an active war front happening between two camps. There's duels happening and people are watching this troll just drag this dude across through the battle. And everyone's like, nope, not my zoo, not my monkeys. And he's like, can I pay you 2 copper to not eat me? And I'm no. And he's like, I'm feeling very conflicted about our relationship that you're helping me right now so you can eat me later. So we're having this whole sort of comedic dialogue in the middle of this massive fight. And it's this strange, surreal backdrop. And I get to the gate of Silver, which was open. And I throw him through Silver's gate and just scream, "Fix Dumpling," and walk away. And all these people in Silver are like, what, why did this what? Which just goes to show there are some things, if you role play with enough confidence and charisma, you can get away with shit that's not supposed to happen. You can absolutely just be like, roll up like, no, I clearly belong here. And people will just let you have it. But the combat is really an interesting topic because it's one of those things that has always been, it's been a mixed praise point and mixed sore point at Germany and in the US, where we're trying to get people to embrace the more theatrical combat. But then when you get into, say, sieges or the final battle, a lot of that kind of goes out the door, doesn't it? People play a lot more competitively. And I'm playing a greenskin in this game, so at that point, I know I'm not here to survive. I'm not here to show up looking pretty at the end of the fight. I'm going to make other people feel scared and then bludgeon me and then feel good that, holy shit, we beat the troll. You know, that's kind of what it is. I'm here to sell them a fight. Which meant that I was ground zero for every arrow and spell in the final fight. No one wanted to fight. I think they thought Ogg was actually a field monster, which is so funny. I was joking. I'm being rewarded too well for my role play. That's what I was saying. But it is a point where people will get a little bit flustered about it. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I will say that there is a concerted effort to spread the theatrical fighting culture. And it has been happening some on the camp level as well, which is great. And I think that it is going to be a little bit of time before it really begins to stick. And it's going to be a fair amount of effort before it begins to stick because we have so many role-playing and fighting cultures being brought into one spot.
Yeah.
And I have faith that these things can, change, evolve, develop, spread. But it requires a lot. It requires a lot of initiative on the part of not just the staff, but also the players.
It requires buy-in from the culture of the game.
It requires the players to encourage it amongst each other.
And I will shout out, not to interrupt, but I do want to shout out, there is a very large number of people who come from much more vigorous full contact games in the United States, like Bohurt, Daggerher, Hema, the SCA, who are all here. And they all sort of took up this thing afterwards, being like, hey, do not confuse this event for your war. That is not what this event is. And they were very much praising Drachenfest, but they were letting people know, don't treat this like it's a stick jock fight. And it was really good to see the people who are the advocate, like the people who enjoy being the stick jocks, the ones really advocating for, we don't want you to do that here. Because those are the people you need saying that. So I was really happy that they were the ones stepping up and saying that. The other thing I would say is that you need people to make it cool. And the more people who do that, who aren't just like camp champions, right? People who are just like, yeah, I'm just here. The more you give them moments to feel good about themselves for doing that, the more they go, oh, this is rewarding. And they'll want to move that forward for themselves too.
It is really gratifying when people find the light switch. To see people come in from those different backgrounds, to see what theatrical fighting can be and just how cool it can be. And they get it. When they pick up on it, that's magical.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm going to see if I can like find a way to do that a little bit more, either as Ogg or as Gabriel. I'm not sure, but just to sort of like go and do things. Like I was wandering around as Ogg just to go talk to people and then be like, show me your gardens. Show me your gardens. Let me make sure you're doing it right. And a lot of people actually took advice Ogg gave them, and their gardens were really good at the end of the event. But fighting wise, that's going to be a big thing, because one of the things that I feel a big difference that I noticed between the American Drachenfest versus the German Drachenfest, and this may just be a terminal mass thing. The Americans are not taking the camp life quite as seriously as the German game does. Like the German game, like they would be giving out, this is your unique shit for the camp. You need this to get in and out. They were very security conscious about infiltration. Number one, we're not that serious about it yet. There were a few infiltration incidents though. They were big. So that may become a thing next year. People are going to think about that. You also didn't see the militarization mindset that you see in the German game, where you would have like entire camps be like, hey, 10 a.m. Thursday morning, we want you in your kits. We're going to practice together to make sure we understand how we fight together. We're going to understand these are our heavies. These are our skirmishers. We're going to like spend an hour just kind of working this out and making sure we have a plan to go into fights with. It was very much more ad hoc from what I saw. There wasn't as much coordination at the camp level for that. Some camps were doing it with groups. Some people were opting into that. But there wasn't really a, no, this is the camp warlord who is going to like crack the whip and say, no, we're doing this right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. It'll be really interesting to see. It was a learning curve for a bunch of them in my enterprise, but they did so. You know what? It's always a learning curve. Like I said, this game is evolving. You know, we doubled in size from year 1 to year 2. If you keep having, even if you're going from like a 25%, let alone 100% population increase, you've basically got to rewrite a lot of your rules for scaling purposes. And you've got to address the new, like, you know, missing steps you found from when you had when you have 600 people, you find more holes. Well, we patched those holes. So now we're playing year 3, which was designed now for 600 people with 1,000 people. Well, that means you got to build year 4 for 1,000 people, but maybe you have 2,000 people. So until the population stabilizes, the best we can do, I feel, as a culture in the game is espouse the things that aren't mechanical and make the best cultural and environmental sort of space we can, where we're really being like, no, we're going to play to lift in that way of where we be generous with one another. We give one another openings to interact with one another's characters. We make characters that are not going to be shutting someone down. Oh, the character's antithetical to me. I can't interact with them. You give yourself a reason to interact with them in a way, even if you have an adversarial relationship, like you can have a frenemies relationship. The more we build connections that establish social cohesion, the more we build things that establish a sensibility where we want more from one another, not to exclude people to only have what I as an individual want, the better that game is going to get every year. Like leaps and bounds, better and better and better. The atmosphere was so inclusive and incredible. Like Arden, you can talk on that more. You dealt with so many more people from so many different camps. Play to lift, absolutely.
Yes. You know, I do have a few thoughts on embodying the culture that we want to see. And I think that alchemy is in a very unique position. And I've never been as aware of that fact as when I talk to people who have come out of other areas of the game. When our alchemy crew in the bazaar is demographically unique, because we have perhaps 2 cis guys on our team. Our leadership is 2/3 non-binary. Like we are very upfront about who we are and what we are. One of the camps also had almost entirely non-dude leadership this year. And we had relatively smooth sailing because we had people who, you know, came in and interacted with us and opted in. People would play being jerks to us and we would play sassing them right back. And in a way that was entirely in character and fun.
There was, and like just expand on 2 points there. People were definitely leaning hard into the environment because you didn't hear people quoting internet memes at one another. You heard people taking the piss out of one another in purely in-game terms. or taking the piss in a way where if there was an in-joke, it was so diegetic, you didn't catch that it was an external reference. Number one. Also, demographically, I would point out, this is probably the most trans visibility I have ever seen in a live-action role-playing game.
Oh yeah, it is. It's right out there, and that is a testament to the organizers. And I think it's also a really, it's really gratifying to see. It speaks also to like the atmosphere that the leadership has created. That, you know, people who might not necessarily feel safe in some environments can feel safe to play their characters. I've had a lot of people comment on the differences between the culture and that of, you know, some of the larger battle games, that they have felt accepted and like their hard work is being rewarded, and that's what we aim for.
Yeah, Alope, exactly. When people are making diegetic humor in such a way that you can't pick up that it's an out-of-game sort of statement until much later, like, oh, right?
We had a fully diegetic like joke about, do vampires ever call each other leeches, as a joke.
I think the in-joke we came up with early in the event, because we were decorating and trying to make the Alchemy Guild look sort of like messy cheek with all the vines and whatnot, and I just started saying, just do whatever, it's organic, it looks organic, and suddenly it became the battle cry of, no, put flowers in there, it's organic.
Yes, put vines on your line so you can vibe while you vibe.
Yep, it's organic, it's fine. So we had tons of stuff like that, and losing is fun as a concept. American gamers, I feel like that was something that I had a lot of fun with, because I've been on that train for a while, but getting to embody it so fully with Ogg, of playing this character where everything that I was doing was being picked up by people, and they were having this kind of revulsion but humor response at the same time. So it was really wonderful to have people being like, oh, we kind of don't like the troll, but at the same time we kind of do like the troll. So fun. Which is should I break the news for the plan for next year for Ogg? I feel
let them find out. Let's see if we can make it pan out. I think it's gonna be fun.
Make it pan out. Okay. There's definitely I have the next level plan for Ogg in the bazaar next year. It's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. In terms of final battle is always a weird thing, because final battle, even in Germany, this is true as well. You're dealing suddenly with a lot of inequities that are not easily bridged. You're dealing with inequities of camp disposition, meaning that, you know, the running joke in Germany for years, I don't know if this is still true, Alope can tell me this or not, was that, yep, Green Camp has 3 times as many people, and they just can throw bodies at you, right? It was just a thing in Germany. Everyone, for some reason, landed in Green Camp. In the US, it felt like there was a lot of people in Green Camp, but a lot of people just landed in Blue Camp. Blue Camp is kind of where the, like, hey, Blue Camp, man, they partied hard. They had a lot of fun. I mean, they literally have the Drinking Dragon. That's literally the moniker that Blue Camp has now. So, yeah, best final battle I ever had was the one where right before it told y'all we can't win, just fight. See, and that's just it. Go out there and make a good scene, make good moments, and I think that's the way to do it. Some people were definitely fighting a little more competitively than I maybe thought was appropriate. And by competitively, I mean in a way that I'm like, it's not really the spirit of the game, but I'm not going to make a scene and start yelling at them in the middle of the battlefield either. So, and that's
was also
like
diplomacy, which was interesting.
There was a massive amount of diplomacy and skullduggery.
Diplomacy pause, which was fascinating.
The skullduggery. So this is amazing. So this actually happened in the Drachenfest final fight. Shadow's avatar got captured, but there were still members of Shadow on the field who were captured, and they somehow slipped their bonds and got uncaptured. And Red had basically surrendered the field to Green. So Red is standing next to the portal to just give themselves up, so that way Green can take it. Red gave all of its troops. So Red's standing undefended. Like the 3 Shadow people ran over captured red and took red off the field and dedicated the capture to silver. They literally stole a dragon out from green. And like everyone who was dead from shadow started cheering, and I turned, I'm like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And like, oh, because they don't want to tell everyone in the field what's happening. They literally did Grand Theft Dragon in the middle of the damn battle. And they got away with it. So like they're calling referees over, and they had to actually get the head guy, Dan Comstock, on the horn. They're like, hey, they've only got 3 people. Does that count to surround it? And Dan's like, fuck yeah, that's emergent fucking beautiful bullshit. Go with it. Roll with that. So they stole a point, and they gave that point to Silver, which was amazing. And Silver was radically outnumbered, like really badly outnumbered. Silver had a bit of a rough year. So you had that. The big thing that came out of the discussion this year from the final battle was safety, specifically with bows. And it's a very real, very good discussion to have, because, you know what? I wasn't involved in the discussions of the pre-mechanics of it. I wasn't involved in the check-in mechanics. I was not involved in the Fighters Guild and how they were talking about it. So I don't know what prep went into this prior to that final fight. I'm not going to speculate. What I can say is that we were seeing a lot of people who were, rather than doing the directed shot, like the I'm 15 yards away from you, I'm aiming at what I'm going to hit, and I shoot at it. They were doing the I'm 45 yards away from you, and I'm doing the fire it to the sky in cinematic fashion, and to whomst it may concern, which is unfortunately a great way to hit people in the head and the eye. And not everyone wears helmets. I do advocate for wearing head protection. I wasn't wearing mine, so, you know, there it is. But people doing that with the bows was a concern. There was definitely some questions raised about, were people checking their bow draw strength? Was everyone under 25 pounds? There was definitely questions raised about, like, was there good standardization in the LARP safe arrows? Because some of them were slapping a little hard. So that was that's a big consideration, and that's a serious discussion. You know, I mean, thankfully no one was doing the I slap the arrow with my sword, because that's the fastest way to get someone to lose an eyeball to the back of an arrow. Thankfully, no one was doing that, and was very proud of everyone in the field for behaving well and doing that well. But the archery safety is something that's going to need to be addressed. You know, we don't want to lose that. So that'll be something to be addressed. I think there's going to need to be a little bit better clarification on the way that surgery on the battlefield and healing in the battlefield works with the 5-minute rest period. Because some people were getting, and I did this too, because I didn't realize that, where they just, because like they did their surgery and I was resting, and then someone shoved a healing potion down my mouth and said, oh, you're healed for 2. Go get back in. And I went, oh, I didn't realize that worked that way. It turns out it doesn't. You can be healed for those 2 points, but you still have to finish your 5-minute rest before you can go back out into the fight if you're getting like field surgeryed up. And Arden, please correct me if I'm wrong there.
There is a potion that allows you to bypass that.
Okay.
But it is less common than a regular healing potion, and they don't stack.
Okay. See, no one clarified. I was just told you're healed for 2. Right? So there was there was some stuff. I think my feedback on that, I'm going to, and Alopi, you can confirm this for me better, because my impression when I was in Germany, when the mages are doing Orb of Power, they have to kind of channel that, I think, for like 30 seconds or a minute per point of damage. They have to be doing their mojo to sort of power it up. They're doing their Kamehameha wave sort of thing, right? That's how a bunch of mages blew a gate off one time, because they had 10 mages going for like 10 minutes, and then they just blasted the door off the hinges. Here, I think it's like a 15-second thing, and then they throw it, but it does a lot of damage, and it goes through armor, and I like wearing the armor and being aesthetically pleasing on the battlefield. There's a lot of things that bypass armor right now. And, you know, again, I'm playing a green skin, but it kind of stinks when you're the landing pad for everything that basically says, yeah, your armor doesn't count. So it's something where I don't want to make that a gripe, but I do want to be like, man, if we're going to encourage people to be as aesthetically pleasing, otherwise it's like, well, why aren't you just running around naked here? And admittedly, this is also part of being a good role player. We put on our good role player hats. We don't mind not having a mechanical advantage to have a good aesthetic presence and make it look good. Like, I hope there's photos of me in the final battle looking like the monster that I was playing, even though I was probably the most ineffective person there, because it's like, if I hit someone, there would be 3 archers and a mage on me the minute I got to the front line. So they completely rehashed armor and magic rules to stop the I put on full steel for 30 minutes and get blown up by one softball issue. That's kind of what we were seeing here. So it is a thing where I feel that, you know, reporting back to the mothership and getting some feedback on that will be good in terms of the aesthetic and also keeping people out and fighting and doing stuff. So it's going to be like I said earlier, and Arden chimed in earlier, it is a process. It is a process, and it's a good process. It's a process where someone was asking me about it. I said, no, you know what? We should be thankful that there is an org that is so invested in our feedback that they're going to be retooling the rules every year, knowing they're going to be out of date by the time they land the next year when the population increases, because that means they love what they're doing and they want to give us the best thing they can so then we can evolve again. And anyone who complains about that, I just said, yeah, but you know what? You bought 10 editions of Warhammer 40K. You bought, 9 editions of Dungeons and Dragons. You understand what a rules edition is. It's okay for things to change. And for the most part, I think people are seeing now that we're in year 2 that I'm going to change off of the Gary Newman because, they're seeing that the change is positive and evolutionary. And now people are getting that feeling of, oh, we're not here to take your toys away. We're here to enhance the overall vibe of the experience.
Yes. I think there is going to be a lot of tweaking and a lot of retooling based on how things scale, because there are not that many people doing something at a scale like this. I'm interested to see what kind of feedback we get with this very large event. I'm interested to see what played well and what didn't. One thing that I'm very grateful for is having, my group of players in the bazaar who sometimes get a chance to play test things before a larger group of people get to access them. So that gives me valuable feedback for the following year.
I get a lot of mechanics bounced off my head over here.
Yeah, well, you're kind of right in the line of fire.
I'm literally one room away. It's like, hey, babe. I'm like, yeah, honey. How would you feel if we did this with a magic toad? I'm like, son of a bitch.
Or like, does this make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've also just had some really incredible mentorship from within the org on, how to make things play well, how to simplify things for ref purposes, and how to, because this is all adapted from the German system, but it has various tweaks that people pointed out to me needed to be made, and some stuff that I thought could be expanded on.
And I feel the other thing to mention is that there's always this lens of, will people be having fun doing it? Like, no one wants to create something where they go, oh, I just made an entire thing where it's screwing in light bulbs roleplay, right? It has to be fun and engaging.
Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind is that the scale and the type of this event means that if a mechanical issue ruins someone's entire experience, then they really haven't gotten the full extent of what this game can do. Because, yes, while a mechanic that you don't feel works properly or serves you can be difficult, it can be a little bit of a setback, there is so much of the event that will not affect.
It's literally why people
it changes the tenor of the conversation.
It really does. It changes the tenor of the conversation. And like one of the things where people who are a little bit at the end of the last fight, I said, hey, remember, this is 10% of your event. And it's not even a very important 10%. It's the 10% that you knew was coming at the end and was on the calendar. But you had the rest of the event, and you still have more event to go after this. Don't hyper focus on whatever happened here, whether it was amazing, whether it was bad. Can you make good art out of it? Can you make good story out about what you experienced here? Yeah. And that's really what you take away with it.
Yeah, that bit with Shadow at the final battle made me think of, because I was talking with someone about it after the fact, that it was a little bit of a hinky finish, and the first thing I thought of was professional wrestling.
Yeah.
The number of wrestling matches you see that have like a dirty win, an unclean win, or something that is in doubt when the match ends. That carries over into a storyline.
Yeah.
That all carries over into future story and into the following year. And how those avatars interact with each other from the jump is going to be dictated by that series of events. I was going on to someone early in the event about how like dragon drama is the best drama. Avatar gossip is the best gossip.
We had an entire group of people showing up. The minute you drop that line, do you know how many people started showing up like little birds being like, this happened with one of the avatars? You know, everyone wanted to come over and drop their tea in our tea. It was great.
I love that because gossip is the best plot distribution engine you can think of at Drachenfest.
You had full-on chisme going on there. It was pretty wild.
Give it. Spill it all.
So I'm going to wrap this up. I'll tell one final thing because I actually got to put on an actual wrestling match as Ogg. And then I'm going to close this out because my voice is kind of going. But so we talked about Charlie briefly earlier. Charlie was running the Lamplighters and they did their whole corrupt election and the Brass Brigade with the Keystone Cops kind of thing. There was an area in the bazaar called Rat City. And that was meant to be the low town kind of rough area. And there was this group there called the Bacaro. And they had, yet another bar and establishment of ill repute. It was 18 plus, so kids couldn't go in there. And there really wasn't anything that big going on. They had like a burlesque show, it's like, okay, cool.
The Rat City folks are wonderful.
They are a blast. They are a real blast.
And they work so hard.
It's a lot of friends of ours out of game from other games. And they were putting on the Bacaro Brawl, which was basically going to be like, a series of wrestling matches in the mud. And it was very like, dramatic brawling and wrestling spots and whatnot. And Charlie did this thing with someone, but he had this shtick. So Charlie, much like me, has a sick love of the 1980s WWE storylines. And he was there with all these props and stuff. He actually brought a snake with a rattle on it, but like a small child like chased him down and like whacked it in half so it broke. But he had this rubber rat and it was like a squeaky toy rat. And he was being the Rat Thunder Man. Oh yeah. Macho Man gonna get you. He was calling himself the Rat Thunder. And he was doing his whole wrestling with the rat kind of thing, doing the Macho Man voice, and he sells it really well. And I see him doing this, and he's having a thing, and it's okay. And he's coming by, and I go, hey, Charlie. He's like, yeah, what's up? Do you want to go and have a heel-on-heel match where I'll you Macho Man, I'm just going to Ric Flair this shit at you, and we'll do that. Like, I'll hit a Flair flop. You can do something. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll go tell them right now. We're going to set this up. And he runs over and says, no, can we go in like 2 fight? And they're like, okay. He comes back and he's like, hey, I got this idea. I'm going to at some point throw the rat at you and you can catch the rat. I'm like, what if I pretend to eat the rat? He's like, yeah. So we have this whole, we have maybe 5 spots set up in this thing. We come up with this in 30 seconds. So he starts yelling at me, why are they letting trolls in here? Yeah, we can't let these kind of people in here. Yeah, the cream's got to rise to the top. And I start screaming at him in the troll voice that he's a rat fucker and all this horrible things. And we just start a fight. And it starts out and we're doing stuff. And he comes in and throws the big left. And I do the poof. Like the Terminator turned back. And everyone's like, oh, suddenly everyone's invested. Now you're telling a story. So he does it again, and I bring it back in like, oh, and he jumps on a table and does a double hand down at me, and I'm like, and I spin around, and I'm good. And have you ever seen a Flair flop? Ric Flair would do this thing where he would like march like 5 steps like he was okay, and then just flop face first on the ground. And I do that, and I'm trying to get back up, and he's like hitting me in the ass with the rat. And I finally get back up, and I'm chasing him around the ring, screaming and trying to hit him, and he's ducking and weaving. And he throws the rat at me, and I one-hand it, and I shove it up under that face mask like this thing here, because this mask goes pretty far down, covers things. And I shove the head of the rat in my mouth so I can hold it in under the mask. And I start going, and Charlie's over there being like, my son, my son. And he like does this like drop kick to my balls kind of move. And I'm on the ground, and he's like doing this. I'm like, oh, big elbow, do the big elbow. So he hits the big elbow, and nothing happens. He's like, he runs to one side of the Baccarat, runs back to the other side of the Baccarat, jumps up and drops the big elbow again. And I throw the rat into the air like he just Heimlicked this rat out of my stomach. And he catches the rat and puts the rat on me, and the rat counts me out. I get the 3 count. No, he does the 3 count pin. And it's like this huge pop from like 50 people watching this, of this impromptu wrestling match. And it was so good. I was talking to Charlie later, and at the end, I'm like, hey, can we do this again next year? Can we actually build this and have like a yearly storyline where we're building up like this sort of like Macho Man, Ricky the Dragon kind of like rivalry on the way up, but it only happens once a year at Drachenfest. And he's like, oh shit. And the energy we had there, I'm like, in a month, I need to like cut a promo, and then you can cut another promo, and we can just build this thing. But people have to know to go to this sidebar on a side of the bazaar for this Baccarat brawl thing to watch this wrestling match. And we have like a 4-year storyline, and I'm talking to other people who do that, like Amanda Lane Olsen. Like Amanda's done like wrestling with you at Velvet Noir,
Arden. Yes, that is one of the most enjoyable scenes I think I've ever had. We were full on foxy boxing, hair pulling, great time.
Like they were in 1920s, like lingerie with like the knee-high socks, throwing socking punches and like kneeing one another. It was like watching these 2 brain cells duke it out. It was great. I talked to Amanda, man's like, oh, I want to get in on that. I talked to Pierre, the guy from the Mages Guild, who's the professional wrestler, and he's like, oh, I want to get in on that. Everybody I've talked to is like, how do we keep building this up? And like, we have like a couple of year plan about what we want to do with it. But eventually, if it keeps going, we get to year 5, we need to have the Baccarat Battle Royale, where we just get everybody in, and whoever gets thrown over the fence of the Baccarat is out, and see how many shitty heel spots. We have people holding onto the fence, or like one leg is being held up by 2 other people, or someone standing on a table or something. The bazaar is just becoming a wrestling federation. This one small part at one small event that happens on like a Thursday or Friday night suddenly has a wrestling bent to it. And that's beautiful because it doesn't disrupt the rest of the event. And I think this is the big thing. This is not taking away from the focus of the event. It's not taking away from the dragon event. It's not taking away from the war that's happening. It's not taking away from any of the enterprises that are doing things. It's not taking away from players who are having serious roleplay. It's injecting this one spot where if you want to opt in and show up for this, the in-game entertainment is not just like, belly dancing or musicians, though we had a number of very talented belly dancers and musicians and fire dancers and every type of entertainer you could think of. Suddenly there's a wrestling match too. And here's the funny thing. I didn't see that in Germany. So that's a uniquely American creation of what's going on here right now. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that we have these little things that are they're germinating from just moments where players who have really good collaborative energy said, what if we wanted to do this? And I feel like as the people in the camps, I think are going to start to realize they have the freedom and safety to do that inter-camp. That's where it's going to get interesting.
I've been joking that wrestling is LARP for years.
Yeah.
So this gratifies
both have.
me so
We
very
both have been
much.
saying this for years, that it's like, yeah, there's a reason why I keep going back to professional wrestling as a great example of how to tell a story in a live action role playing game. You know, you can do a lot to invest people in a physical dialogue and a story and make people like love someone or hate someone. So like Charlie's character, the Rat Man, was not well liked at the beginning of that night, but after that fight with the troll, Charlie's the face. The Rat Man's the face. Right? The bad troll tried to eat that man's rat. He's a bad man. He's the heel. You know, how do you make everyone dislike you? And then yet still, people are chanting that character's name at times. It's wild. It's very gratifying to feel like you've done something right. Like watching the number of people come up to Bluehands or being like, talking to other people and get like, can I speak to Bluehands? People giving the gravitas to characters was really cool. Really cool. Not because they did something, you know, they didn't kick down a dragon's front door and shit in their Cheerios. They literally just played their characters really well and people acknowledged it. There were some amazing role players. One of my favorite things, there was a young lady, and I don't want to like put her on the spot too much, but basically she was taking care of a lot of stuff that wasn't really meant for her to be taken care of in her milieu for her character. And when we caught wind of it, that she had been taking care of all this stuff for the alchemist and herbalist, and she's playing like a surgeon who's just trying to make sure she figures it out and make sure it looks good, we actually gave her an award from the Alchemist Guild. Like, we were like, no, we have small rewards. It's not the dragon egg, but we will absolutely, we made sure they got rewarded for the effort and the like sort of just sheer amount of stuff they did to make that good and the storytelling they did with it. Yeah, orcs are always scary. Big diplomats get respect. Exactly. Yeah. You know, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm too cool. Why do I care about it? Like anytime an avatar walked by, I'd be like, you know, I'd freak out a little bit and try to get away from them. Because it's like, no, that's omnipotence itself. If I saw one of the champions, it'd be like, brr, brr. Like you'd want to pick a fight with them, but you're not going to say it out loud. You know?
Yeah. I would always try to give a slight head bow to an avatar walking by, except for the blue avatar, in which case it would be a grin and a wave and a, you know, a raise a glass sort of motion.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, blue is Blue has set a tone.
The people's avatar.
Blue is the people's avatar. I mean, green set a tone. It was like nature red into. They're very savage down in green. So at this point, I feel like this is where I want to stop. There's so many more things we could have covered, and I know there's a lot of things mechanically we could have covered, but I feel like we touched on a lot of the really good points and the points that are being worked on, and like so many other cool things. And I was debating going into like all the technical stuff of building this kit behind me, but I'm like, you know what? That's a nitty gritty thing. And because I'm a masochist, I'm probably going to start building a gold camp suit of armor because I've got all the parts here. Soup, broth hall for life. So I feel like I might try to go and see if I can get a second camera set up so I can have a camera on what I'm working on when I'm building that second suit of armor so people can sort of be there for the ecstasy and the agony of that process. Gold camp armor. Yeah, right. I had some gold camp moments. There was some gold camp roleplay. Arden found some people who were accidentally gold camp, calling themselves the balance keepers. And we're like, oh, children, you are stepping in something that you don't even know what's there.
They are a lot of fun. I mean, one of them is someone I knew already, and he is an absolute sweetheart and someone who I wanted to go and play with more. So we had a lovely in-character conversation.
Yeah, I actually wound up getting to like a really heavy mindset the last night because I was walking around as Gabriel and there was this group, I think they were called the Pillars of Fate. They were like the ones who were the Skyrim people.
Well, The companions were the ones who were more explicitly Skyrim, but it was the fortune-telling guy at Pillars that we went and saw.
Yeah, so like he had this full-on like massive hairy thing, like really great like Nordic kit. But he had his own custom like fortune-telling, like roll the runes kind of thing. And you were in Pillars. Oh, cool. Dope. Yeah, he was a burly man. He was doing this custom like rune board. Bjorn. Yeah. So he's like, hey, think of a thing in mind. And so I was asking him this thing as Gabriel, and the sort of dichotomy of playing Gabriel was that Gabriel was playing this, like, you know, as we were saying, this sort of like the guild husband, and being very content at just being a husband and helping along with household things, but feeling a little conflicted because Gabriel isn't in armor, Gabriel isn't holding a sword. But there's all this evidence of the golden avatar's hand on the world. I was Cameron, one eye, purple dress. Oh, cool. So like it was asking like, you know, how do I serve both masters? How do I make this work? And he gave me this incredible reading that went through this entire thing, and it was really hard. It was really hard to be sitting there in character because I could feel Gabriel getting called out hard by this reading, and he didn't know. So at the end of it, he's like, well, thank you, I hope this helps. I'm like, well, I should introduce myself. Hello, I'm Gabriel, I'm Arte, Lord of Avondale, second in command of the Golden Avatar's heavy infantry, the Gold Dragon. And he's like, wait, what? Because last time I was in Germany, I was number 2 in the heavies. And he's like, I'm like, there are more, these are not the only Dragonlands, and this is not the only ward. And he just stops. He's just like having this moment where I can see him process, like, I will pray for you. And I'm trying to walk around like, I want you to pray for the men and women who have to follow me. And I think that's when it sunk in how heavy this was for the character he'd just been talking to. It was a really heavy moment. So at that point, it's like I had this whole heavy conversation as Gabriel with Bluehands. And it's like, yeah, it's not really a type 2 kind of night. People are kind of partying. It's the last night. Man, and that's just it. It was this heavy moment of Gabriel having to, like, you know, has to pick up the armor and the sword again and be ready to do the thing. So, you know, I kind of ended my night there, and it was nice. I still enjoyed my night. I wish I would have been more amenable to going and meeting people and partying as Gabriel. I'm going to try to do that next year. I think that's kind of my mental goal, is to not get as out of game in my own head about not being recognizable as the character I've been all day, and just go have fun, but do it in a way that I'm not pulling people out of game, like, oh no, I'm actually this other person. You know, I want to be able to enjoy that. But there's definitely a moment in my mind, Alopi, where I'm having this moment in my mind where if I can have the full kit with me, and my druthers, if I had a fantasy, if I could have the full armor, the full kit, have it be ready to go, and Silver's walking up outnumbered 5-1 again, just have that scroll in my hand with the scale stamped on it, and just hand it to the Silver Avatar, and just inside of it, it says, we do not do things that are right by ratio, even though one person may not tip a balance. And go fight with Silver. I would do that in a heartbeat. So at this stage, I think I am done. I don't even know how raids work here. Like, I have no idea how raids work on Kit because I'm so new to this platform. I don't want to do anything gold related and not intrude in that space. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Who was that? Oh, Alobi. Thank you so much. Like, I want to raid somebody, but I have no idea how raids work on this platform, so I'm going to try it. I'm probably going to get it wrong. Just, you know, pity me. I do not know who is all here. Let me just look up LARP and see if there's any other LARP people on here. Is there anyone live doing LARP stuff? No. Is there anyone live doing roleplay stuff? Not really. I mean, I guess this is... Oh, wait, I didn't check channels. You know what? Yeah, and look... I mean, I hate to say it. I feel like right now we're number one, gang. We're the number one LARP stream on Kick. Woo! So we're just going to call it there. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us ramble through all this stuff. I hope this gave you all a good, positive impression of what Drachenfest is and can be, both in the US and in the EU, over in Germany. And hey, if you're going to come, if you're going to play, it doesn't matter if you're playing in a camp, if you're playing in a bazaar role or with an enterprise, come on over. Come on over and talk to my troll. Lynx just shouted you out. Brookie, I'm so sorry. Is Lynx live on the purple platform or are they live here? Because I didn't see them live here. I would have rated them. They're live on the purple platform. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna say this. Lynx is a delight and a glorious, glorious human being. So I'm gonna go and do this. They're not live right now. Oh, I can't even do a slash raid. How do you raid on... I need to look this up now. How do I raid on Kick? What is the raid command? Promo. Okay, there we go. Bang, promo, Lynx VR. Lynx is a very good friend of mine. Lynx has been a virtual dancer doing VR stuff. So basically, imagine burlesque in VR chat. That's Lynx. That's Lynx. I love them to pieces. They're a wonderful, wonderful human being. They're an incredibly warm human being, very generous human being. I'm really glad that we got to have this opportunity to talk about all the different role-playing aspects of Drachenfest. And I'm sorry my voice is shit because I've been screaming as a troll for a week. She's streaming your voice at the moment and crying. Oh. You see, here's the thing, everybody. I have to come back for a minute. I know that Lynx has a thing about my voice. Lynx can sometimes being a, how do we phrase this? A Georgia peach, a Southern belle. Lynx can get a little bit flustered. So sometimes, just sometimes, as a treat, I like to go and put on the sexy voice and go, hey, Lynx. Ooh, ooh. All right. I'm so happy you're all coming and following. I am gonna wrap this up though, because my voice is dying. I'm literally dying right now. So good night, everybody. I will try to start actually playing some games on here. I have my new computer coming next month, so the 2 PC setup will be starting soon. You'll see me streaming VR chat again. And hey, if you had fun, toss a follow. If you didn't, it's cool. We will doubtlessly be talking about gameplay and mechanics and building stuff. I'll try to set some crafting streams up for building some armor. Show you how to do it. And everybody coming in, thank you so much for the follows. It means the world. Starting over here on Kick after 5 years is hard. It's hard, and it means the world to me that you want to do that. So thank you. Good night, everyone. Arden, if you want to say goodnight to everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming by.
Love you all to pieces. You all have a great weekend and enjoy your long weekend. Bye, everybody.